All right. I would say welcome back. I know we've been gone now for almost 2 weeks here. I know my family had some things going on. We had some dog troubles, which is ironic, as my wife and I always joke that, hey, if there's a holiday, one of our dogs is getting sick. So, but in that time frame, the cabinet and I, the department chair, we have been gone for a while. We went back to our place of work and what would you say, Cabinet? An event that certainly will be in history books, or are we just always saying that because we value history?
I think it's going to be a significant event in American history. I think, yeah, for better or worse, I mean, the perception of event is more influential than an event itself. Um, Most people younger than silent generation identify 9/11 or the Kennedy assassination as a bigger event than World War II. I mean,
Yes,
they're wrong. Those are
right.
those are massive events in public perception and in the mood of the country and things, but I mean, it doesn't remotely compare to the death of 45 million people or whatever the heck World War II was.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, depending
So,
on your estimates, maybe 100 million. So,
yeah, and if by chance you've been living under a rock, under a boulder, under a planet, you don't know what in God's name we're discussing. We're talking about what transpired on the 6th, only a couple days ago, with the group of Trump, I'll say protesters dash rioters, depending on your perception.
I think
Stormed.
both were present.
Yeah, yep, and that's something obviously we're going to be discussing today. That there is a fine line as to what is okay and what is not. Um, they raided the Capitol building, and they did a subsequent amount of damage. I think some were trying to make their voices heard. Obviously, I think there was some out there that were trying to probably even, maybe, who knows, threaten some of the House and Senate representatives who were on the floor at that time, counting or at least arguing about the electoral votes. Um, I mean, I think it's crazy for us, especially with the people that we work with on a daily basis. When these events occur live and sitting there and talking and explaining, we're just seeing the perceptions of our colleagues. We can only consider what everyone else in the United States is thinking. And I think as we get into it today, as some you have some really fantastic sources there, Cabinet, that we're going to be diving into, there are going to be insane changes that are going to happen in our country. Some of people will say they're sensible. Some are going to say it's bonkers. And I think a lot of that flashpoint will be because of this event. So, I mean, are you in the same ballpark as I am?
Yeah, and yeah, I'm never happy to see tragedy um, move the ball of the conversation. I would prefer that policy be taken up under considered and sober discussion rather than knee jerk reaction, but such is human nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is certainly the case. So, obviously, we're not going to have any real big articles today. I mean, we're going to be using, excuse me, we're going to be using one,
You know, we
a little
technically
bit of
have
video.
two sources,
Well,
technically,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
within
technically
that,
the video.
a myriad of sources. So,
Right. I mean, we're just going to be discussing what transpired and what effects this is going to have maybe in the long run. We might be a day or two or three later than some other people, but just so much to digest in such a short period of time. And even yesterday, we actually tried to do our little podcast here yesterday, but we had some technical difficulties. As soon as I signed off from talking at the cabinet meeting, I heard that it looks like Apple is going after Parler. Looks like they're trying to bring that down as well. So let's
yep.
get started. Let's get right into it. So show us what you got there.
Okay. So, what I have here, we're going to get into is a timeline of events on the 6th, because I think there's so much misinformation and sort of cherry picking going on with what happened that day that people are basically having completely different conversations about what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Two movies, one screen. as Scott Adams coined that one.
That doesn't
He's not
sound
wrong
familiar
about
at
that.
all.
He's not wrong about that.
Right.
So, um, I also have the Trump speech, and we're not going to do the whole Trump speech. There's too much of it, but I have a snippet, so I'm going to go ahead and share with my colleague. Let's see. There we go. So, I think the most invective thing Trump says, he spends an hour basically claiming the election was illegitimate, claiming that there were parts of the election that were illegitimate, um, citing various evidences as he believes them to be of unfairness in the election or of fraudulent votes.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not going to get into the veracity of that. You've already made up your mind on it, probably, if you're listening to this.
Hmm.
So I haven't made up my mind on that. I think there's probably some impropriety in the election. I don't know if there's nearly enough to be relevant to the presidency, and all of that is moot in some ways because the timeline is such that there will be no further significant legal challenges.
Right.
Um, anyway, I don't want to go back and litigate that. So Trump says finally, our brightest days are before us. Okay, so he's echoing Reagan. Our greatest achievements still wait. I think one of our great achievements will be election security because nobody until I came along had any idea how corrupt the elections were. I mean,
Mm.
I had some idea.
I
Anyway,
mean,
uh,
again, I think some of
I,
the people who are going to
I,
listen to us. Go ahead. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I mean, there's stuff that went down in 2012 that again, I don't think that. I think Obama was duly elected in 2012, but I don't think that Philadelphia was a hotbed or was a center of right behavior at that time. In any case,
Oh, yeah.
um, and again, most people will stand there at 9 o'clock in the evening and say, "I want to thank you very much," and they go off to some other life. He's saying, most presidents would go off into the sunset once they realized that the tallied votes being reported by the news agencies were against them. And then he said, "Something's wrong here. Something really wrong can't have happened, and we fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore." Okay, invective.
Just to some people, they're going to say that's it. That's the spot. That's what he means.
Okay.
Um,
It just
I mean
depends
that
on what you mean by fight, right? Politicians say fight like hell. I mean, I think Biden said it hundreds of times. That
right,
that exact phrase, fight like hell.
right.
Um, you know, do you mean with your fists? Do you mean with your words? So
Hmm.
there's broad interpretation. If you were going to, um, I guess, lambast the president, you would say that the interpretations available are too broad, and he should have known better. Okay.
Right.
Then he says, "Our exciting adventures and boldest endeavors had not yet begun. My fellow Americans, for our movement, for our children, for our beloved country, I say this, despite all that's happened, the best is yet to come." Okay, generally
Hmm.
positive message, nothing wrong with that.
Hmm.
So we're going down to Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania Avenue. We're going to the Capitol. We're going to try and give. And then he sort of digresses a bit. Well, the Democrats are hopeless. They're never going to vote for anything, not even one. But we're going to try and give our Republicans, the weak ones, not the strong ones, because they don't need our help. But we're going to try and give the weak Republicans the kind of pride and boldness they need to take back our country.
Right. And this is the part that I have been questioned on, where so many people who we know, at least people I've had discussions with recently, in between when this happened and now, are saying that's it, that's it. I heard he said to raid the Capitol building. I'm like, okay, where?
Yeah.
Where
Let's
does
walk
he
down
say
Pennsylvania
that?
Avenue. I want to thank
Right,
you all. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you all for being here. This is incredible. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, he doesn't walk down with them. He goes back
no,
inside. I don't know if it would have been better or worse if he had. If he had, he might have been able to stand up in front of the crowd and sort of put his hands up and say, not too far. But that's all hindsight. You don't know what's going to happen.
make
And
assumptions.
my assumption, if I were standing in that crowd, and by the way, I considered going to see the president's last speech. I'm not the biggest Donald Trump fan in the world, but I was curious what he had to say.
Hmm.
Um, I think if I was in that crowd, I would have assumed that what was intended was for me to walk down to the other end of the lawn and shout until the folks inside the chamber could hear me and remember that they serve at the people's pleasure. Now, that said, I don't think that I disagree with the president that the vice president should have rejected the results. I think that the place to fight that was at the state legislature level, and that
Right.
and that fight was largely abdicated by the state legislatures.
Hmm.
So if there was a time or place to be uh, raising a rabble, it would have been outside there. But again, when I say raising a rabble, I don't necessarily mean, I definitely do not mean destruction of property.
Right.
Um, so let's get into what actually happened then, because I
Well,
think any reasonable person would not assume reading this. Okay, any reasonable person looking at an anonymous president saying something like this, because people have preconceptions, would say, okay, well, violence is not the intent here.
and how many tens of thousands of people have walked on Pennsylvania Avenue in a form of protest without getting to this level, and who have been, inspired to do it by presidents as a multitude of other
I mean, there's
political
march for
figures.
this, march for that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right,
So all
but
that happens, but this march is not legitimate because it is based on lies from an evil, power mongering president who wants to spread hate and false narratives.
right. It's just I can't tell you again how many people I've talked to in the last few days who are like, oh, he specifically said to go raid the building. Like, where do you see that? And we watched part of the speech, or we went into deeper content. Like, oh, well, I guess he doesn't say it, but he meant it. I'm like, okay, think of it this way. Let's say you think that you believe that he said it. You tell somebody who maybe hasn't had time to watch the news or research, right? That person trusts you, and then, oh, well, my friend who I know, or my brother or my sister, or whoever, said that he said this,
Well,
and that
this is why I went to the words because I don't want to be wrong on this. Like I think that when
right.
you need to critique your own side more harshly than the other
Mm-hmm.
side. So I'm really going in here. I'm trying to be open minded. I have my biases, and I want to say, okay, did something where did something wrong happen here? And I don't see it in these words, but I could see how somebody believed that they see that, right? I could see that you could take this sentence and say, well, that's an incitement to violence. I disagree, but I understand. Okay, so let's get into the details because we're short for time, right?
Oh, not
Not too bad.
immensely.
Okay.
Yeah, not immensely. Just we wanted to get started and get rolling here,
But
but yeah,
absolutely, your point is right. Where the whisper down the lane effect is detrimental, and you, I think all of us have a responsibility for the things we say, not just the president.
right.
And if the
Well,
president behaves badly, then we have an increased responsibility to be generous and magnanimous towards the things that our fellow Americans are saying, and to sort of hear things in a positive way, and try to say things that can be taken positively.
and not just taking self responsibility for what we say, but also what we do. We are in control of ourselves,
Right,
no
words
one
and
else.
actions are not the same thing. People will bring up the fire in a theater argument, but um,
Yeah.
words and actions are not the same thing.
Hmm.
Um, Context matters. Now, people will say, well, there was a tinderbox here, and the president has been stoking that tinderbox ever since the election. Um, at the same time, the results of the election and the way in which things proceeded from there might be said to be a tinderbox in and of themselves.
Hmm.
So that's a matter of opinion. Um, 11:15. Growing crowd gathers to listen to Trump. All right, so here's the crowd that he was speaking to. I think we've got some audio here, but I mean it's just South Carolina for Trump. A lot of American flags. Do you see any Confederate flags in there?
No, not in there, but in
I
one
see. I
inch.
see like I don't know what these are. They might be like some kind of Constitution
Well,
symbol
those
or something.
are well, the three is the 3% militia. I think
Oh,
the
okay.
one that one in to the left of the bottom white run where you see the Roman numeral three is it's the Bennington battle flag, the 1776.
Okay.
Just,
So a
just
lot a
like
lot of callbacks to 1776. Some of it, a little more like whatever. I do appreciate that they've got the actual American flag. I always hate when people fly other flags above it. They've got the actual
Yeah,
American flag above. So it's
yeah.
like saying this is our first loyalty. Okay, good.
They're as separate protesters. I'm actually I purchased the Bennington battle flag, the 1776, as a
Right. I think
commendation.
that's a patriotic thing.
Yeah,
Again, this I'm not sure, but I understand it. But the "Don't Tread on Me" flags, totally
yeah,
patriotic and American as far as I'm concerned.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Obviously, you can take different interpretations of them.
Hmm.
Okay. I think we will eventually see some uglier things. Um, Early arriving protesters at the Capitol start clashing with the police to enter the building. So that's, let me see. The speech was about an hour long, a little over an hour. Speech
Hmm.
started around 11:30 probably.
Mm.
So some of the protesters get down to the other end of the court in 20 minutes or something, and they start some fisticuffs with the police, is what it appears to me, which I think is
Yeah.
completely unacceptable. This is video from the Blaze. It's a right-wing outlet.
Hmm.
So I
What's
see
interesting?
some pepper spray. I see
Yeah,
shields.
it's interesting. There's obviously different parts of the Capitol. I remember when I was watching a number of different live streams. I
It's
mean,
a
the
big building.
mentality. Yeah, so you could see the mentality of what's going on in one location versus another. Like here, there was a bunch of people fighting, but
Right, one
over
crowd
there,
may have no idea what another part of the crowd is doing. Right.
right,
And by the way, this is a generosity or a magnanimity that I would offer to all of the protests I disagree with. Not a
right.
huge fan of Black Lives Matter. I detest Antifa. Um, I, I I agree with the general premise of Black Lives Matter. Yes, all
Hmm.
lives matter. Every
Hmm.
life matters. Each life matters.
Right.
Is what I prefer to say. But I understand that like one or two jerks who throw Molotovs at the police do not represent the whole group. I almost understand when the press says mostly peaceful protest. It's a little
Right.
humorous when stuff's burning in the background, but by the same definition, this is a mostly peaceful protest.
Right. There's always going to be those, bad apples, those individuals that then the entire, whether it's a protest or just the entire movement is then seen almost completely negatively because the actions of what is typically a minority inside the group.
Right. Okay. Now, again, doesn't justify those actions. So I hate to see Americans in fisticuffs with the police. There's almost never an excuse for that as far as I'm concerned.
I hate to see Americans in fisticuffs with fellow Americans.
Right.
Yeah.
Who are Americans. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, See if Trump supporters head towards the Capitol. Okay, so now the bulk of the crowd begins showing up. This tweet is unavailable now.
Fascinating.
There are like archives and internet time machines.
Yeah, but
So that's
I mean, I
unfortunate.
remember watching live stream. I mean, a number of people were what appeared to be like 400 yards away from the Capitol building, and they're slowly walking to the Capitol building. They cross the street and they're hanging out in front of a number of I don't want to call them barricades, but the little metal fences. Number of police on the opposite side, but very peaceful at first. Now
Yep.
the question is what's being said right there in the front, because as we know, eventually those get pushed through.
And anyway, I mean, when you look at the big picture, and I'm sure there are other videos of it, it makes me sad that this link is already dead. Um,
Yeah.
but you can see that, like from a helicopter view, there's this just like bulk of Americans sort of ambling along with their flags and their strollers, and like it's not, um, it is not a violent mob from that point of view. Now,
Hmm.
then you get to more fights breaking out between the police and protesters, and here you have. Let's see if I. No, something went wrong with that one.
Okay.
So,
Hmm.
but I assume it's just this, but a little more
Yeah.
violent, and I don't know why. If your argument was that these protesters were very very bad and were trying to spark a rebellion, then the more violent things probably wouldn't be taken down. Okay.
Right.
Edited video later shows protesters dismantling and overcoming the barricades and reaching the steps again. So this is destruction of property as far as I'm concerned. Now barricades, I guess. All right. So this is much more inappropriate as far as I'm concerned. I would not be cheering at that.
So this is what's really interesting because the live stream I was watching was on the opposite side of the building from where
Yeah.
they're getting the scaffolding ready for the inauguration speech. And on that side of the building, there's one metal barricade and there was about 2 dozen police officers in front of it. And again, the video I was watching, I was maybe 40 yards away from where the front was, but you could see they start pushing back and forth, and then the police kind of melt away.
Yeah.
Again, like you can't even see where they go because the image quality is.
Well, I mean, the size of the crowd compared to the number of police present.
Right. Right. But these people went onto the Capitol steps and they started taking pictures. Now, mind you, within 5 minutes, just taking pictures. They weren't being violent. They weren't
Right.
jumping around. They were standing
Look,
there.
I get it. I think they're idiots. I think they're like frat boys LARPing. But I understand why you would want to take the picture or whatever. Like, I don't. I'm never a fan of the civil disobedience. The police say don't cross this line, and unless you've got a life, liberty, or property reason to cross that line, you follow the police instructions. That's how I feel.
See, and this is. I knew this point was going to come up eventually, and maybe we should wait till they get into the building. But like, I can see where civil disobedience within a certain realm is acceptable.
Yeah, but this is not okay. Like, that guy could have cracked his skull there.
Right, but that's my point. Is for me personally, I have a very fine line. And when I mean violence, like first off, if you're doing violence to people, that's it. It's over. It's done. No, not acceptable.
Oh, okay, so you think destruction of property is not violence to people?
Now, let me be very specific.
Yeah, that's fair.
So you and I have discussed this 100 times, but for all of those who are listening to us, I always like to use the example right before the LA riots started. There was a number of preachers and a number of congregations that unified that after not only what happened to some of the events that had happened over there.
Yeah, hold a moment, Chris. I'll be along.
Okay. So basically what occurred at that point, they went to the headquarters in Los Angeles of the police department there. I know Cabinet there is having a discussion there.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. No, I was just explaining how this congregation went to the headquarters of the LA police, and what they did is they locked arms essentially as they opened the doors of the headquarters, and they slowly
press forward. But don't they knock over a metal detector?
They knock over
a desk.
Right, one metal detector. They knocked over.
But like the taxpayers paid for that metal detector.
Right, they did. But what they did then subsequently thereafter is they got into the center of the building and just made their presence felt and said that this is injustice, this shouldn't happen.
Okay, well, look, I think they're welcome to stand outside the building and say those things with a megaphone. I'm not okay with what happened. Well, and if you're okay with that, then you're okay. Then you're okay with most of this, and I'm not.
And that's not true. That is not true.
Okay.
Breaking a door open and going into
most
the hall, well, just for our viewers and for you. Once you get inside, like if they would have just broke open the door and got inside,
okay, but
and just stood there.
What about when you pick up the podium and start walking around with it?
No, that's theft.
Okay.
That's theft. Breaking into an office.
I think that right up there with theft is vandalism.
Well, right, and it is vandalism.
I mean, one of these guys was actually dressed like a vandal. We'll get to that.
Well, depending on your perception, you could argue they're all dressed like vandals.
No. I mean the historical vandals.
Oh, well, the guy's wearing a bison hat. That's not a vandal. That's totally historically incorrect. Anyway,
a Wagnerian version of a vandal.
bar. No. All right, so like
this is just. I'm not enthusiastic about pushing the police over, fighting with them, pushing into the Capitol building. Like, no.
Right.
Like, I'm fine if you want to stand out with a megaphone and say, "This is the people's house. Why aren't they allowing us in?"
Right.
And like shame them into like letting your crowd sort of press their way in peacefully. Fine, but when you're breaking stuff, knocking stuff over, fighting with people, not okay.
There's a very fine line. Again, like that's why I use that example so specifically.
Because I guess it's the place where you might split the hair one way or the other if it had gone one way or the other.
Right, and the thing is, realistically, I know that what the chance of that happening the way that I find it personally acceptable is so minimal. But that's just my line. That's where I am personally.
All right, so we got to move forward here.
Yeah.
And I understand your line. So I think I'm just on the other side of the line from you, or I was okay with them probably even pushing into the police station right up until they knocked stuff over, broke stuff, and or like pushed into other people or
Right,
police who were telling them, "Hey, it's not a good time."
right. See, like pushing that over was accidental, at least from my perception,
I mean, just
because
let's assume that there was somebody taking a desk deposition at that desk at that moment.
oh,
It's like you interrupted that process. You violated that person's rights.
yeah, well, but if see, and that's is that person working for the government? But even then, the individuals working for government have their own personal rights as well.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true. So,
Or any citizen might have any
yeah,
reason to visit the police that day and
hmm,
seek the aid of the police. So you're actually also depriving people of the access to the emergency services.
yeah, that is true. I understand, but still, if you
Okay,
want to get someone's attention, it is an effective
I think
way.
the ends never justify the means.
Yeah.
Until life, liberty, property. Okay, like where you're burning my house down, or you're telling me that it's time to be rounded up and taken to the camps. Like, okay, then everything is permissible because you are at war. But that should
Well,
be
and
the
that's
last possible resort.
and the scary thing is, well, I don't want to say the scary thing because these people have the right to think what they want to think. That I think you might agree with me here. Some of the people in this crowd probably feel that they are getting closer, too
Yeah.
close to for comfort to
And
that,
by the
which
way,
is
I'm probably the guy who's not on board with the Boston Tea Party at the time that it occurs.
never really
I'm
thought about
probably
that.
John Adams, not Sam Adams. I think Sam Adams is a drunken Yahoo who's gone too far. All right,
I I probably would be with the Boston Tea Party.
right. So that's where we divide.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, so I mean,
I share sentiments with the cause of the Boston Tea Party, but not the means. I don't think it's okay to board somebody's private vessel, tar and feather them, dump their cargo overboard. You've destroyed property.
a symbol. A symbol has many meanings. I
Yeah,
mean,
okay, but I'm not just a fan of symbols. Anyway, okay.
yeah, we got to go.
All right, Lucifer. So an official notification circulates encouraging officials to evacuate the Capitol building. So basically, the officials get warned, "Hey, it's getting a little hot outside. Maybe get out of Dodge."
Yeah, and this is when they started
Then
heading
Representative
down.
Elaine Luria, a recently elected Democrat from Alabama, I think, tweets that a pipe bomb has been reported at the Capitol as people are trying to force their way into the building.
Yeah. Okay, I got a point to make about this.
Okay, because I don't
Um,
know anything about this. Was there a pipe bomb? Wasn't there?
it hasn't been confirmed yet.
Okay, so
So
we
so
don't
here's the
give
thing.
her the benefit of the doubt then.
I I, I,
I know there's plenty of reasons you can imagine why she would say that and it not be true for
right,
nefarious purposes,
right.
but
But again, what is a pipe bomb? Are we talking about a flashbang?
I,
Are we talking about a little tiny smoke grenade?
I think my definition of a pipe bomb is something homemade,
I, I,
right? So it's like a can,
right.
probably with some nails in it.
Uh, like yeah, you and I sitting here, we know what a pipe bomb is meant to be. I don't know if Elaine Luria knows that.
Oh,
I
she
would
may not.
hope she
But
wouldn't.
so I'm always willing to attribute to ignorance what might be attributed to malice.
Correct. I mean, I could give her the benefit of the doubt. Like maybe they saw something or reported something. It also could have been something that was thrown by the police to
Right.
possibly disperse the crowd. And to be like,
Okay,
them,
so
they threw
somebody
it.
saw some smoke being released from a thing that was thrown, or a pop or a bang that was released from a thing that was thrown, and what texted Elaine Luria and said there's pipe bombs amid the crowd, and then she tweeted that.
I don't know. I have
Yeah.
personal feelings about Elaine Luria, but go on.
All right,
Don't want to
so
get
we're
into
gonna
those.
have to we'll have to
Mind
wait
you,
until some actual investigation occurs on that front.
mind you, it says
Forward.
she's a Navy veteran, so you would think being in the military, she'd probably have an idea. But again, didn't see it with my own eyes. I don't know.
Yeah. That doesn't knowing some Navy veterans, it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Sadly, probably true. Go on.
Protesters are seen entering the Capitol building, going upstairs to reach the two chambers. They reach outside of the Senate chamber. Okay, so they head up on in.
All right. So This is that one doorway, and yeah, there's this gentleman. I've seen this footage.
So what's this guy doing? Because I haven't
All right,
seen most of this footage. I avoided this that day. I was just so like sick to
all
my
right,
stomach about it all.
and as was I. I mean, there was this empty pit in my stomach. So I haven't seen this specific footage, but I know this is a different angle of the footage I saw of this particular situation with this one officer that you see in this particular
All right, so
crowd.
here these people are sort of bum rushing their way through the building. I mean, relatively moderate pace.
But here's the context, right? Yeah, that officer there. I remember specifically seeing that officer, and seeing a different angle of footage, and that one
People
particular
sort of
protester spoke
shouting and
up,
arguing with the police as they progress. The police sort of retreating. Um,
trying not to get into any sort of physical,
yeah, I mean,
altercation.
okay, so this group better behaved than some others I've observed. I still think they're wrong to be in the building, but I understand what's happening here.
See,
And the
I
police
actually,
seemingly fairly well behaved here.
yeah, see, I
Okay,
actually kind of disagree with you there.
okay.
These are, well, I mean, they are being well behaved, but they're going, they're not stopping when the officer must be telling, like, hey, stop there,
Well,
right?
they've been told that outside as well.
Right, they have been. But then there's
So
a huge
once you
number.
once you yeah. So which breach is
Right. But different breaches of the building at different locations act differently. And this is the problem when you paint a broad brush
I just think
on a
it's a
protest.
slippery slope from the moment you start deciding to break the law.
I would agree with you, but hear me out. Again, I
Okay.
guess I'm leaning more towards that civil disobedience concept. I'm trying to, I don't want to step on that too much longer. So I can't say a number of footage where I saw people break in, right? And mind you, like not in the first line of people who broke in, but you could tell some of the people that were in that first line were, judging by a number of photos and videos that you've seen. Certain people are obviously very distinguishable, as we're going to see the quote vandal here
Hmm.
in due time.
Yeah.
He made his way to the Senate chamber. There were a large number of people. There's a Confederate flag.
Yeah.
It's always one. Um, who broke in and they went to I think it was the rotunda, one of the center parts before you get to the dead middle, and then some even the dead middle. As soon as they broke into the building, they walked into the rotunda area, and it's the funniest thing.
So these
They're
guys with
following.
cameras, are they reporters or tourists?
I think there's a little bit of both going on.
Yeah, I think
These
so
people
too.
look. These people specifically in front of us. These three. I mean, those are reporters
Okay.
or just photographers. They have to be. I mean, look at the extra cameras. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? These
Makes
are not
sense.
your cheap cameras. That's a
No,
camera bag
it's
right
good
there.
stuff.
Um, anyway, so many of those protesters walked in and they start taking photos when they get into the rotunda area, just like it's a tour, and they stay within the felted ropes for a period of time,
Right,
which I thought,
I did see that, and
right,
it just makes me sad because a lot of these people are going to face consequences for this.
right, but
And it's just like you could have just taken a tour of the building.
right, of that crowd that broke in, a small number are doing what that first video is that you saw, that kind of
Right.
pushed in and started kind
Right,
of
and the
pursuing a
rest
certain
are just kind
mass.
of bumbling through and encountering no resistance because the police are tied up with those initial sort of agitators. Right.
Right. The
Okay.
one group I watched specifically came in and they got with like they walked into the lobby area of that door and they just kind of hung out there. And you're like, oh, that's the Senate. We're not gonna, like, people looked in, and then turned around because some didn't even want to get in there because they're like, whoa,
Yeah, they
that's the
realized
Senate.
so they had some sense of shame in like,
Right.
okay, I shouldn't interfere with these. I mean, thank God for the grandeur of the building, I guess, in that
Right.
it does some of that.
hmm
I'm not
Beautiful
even a
building, by the
I'm
way.
not even a fan of such things always, but yeah, it is a
I
beautiful
mean,
building.
if you take into consideration the Senate floor itself and the number of photos and videos that I'm sure all of you who are listening have seen, there's no more than what, maybe a dozen people on that floor at any one time when there were hundreds to
Right.
thousands
Now then,
outside.
not long after, like 5 minutes after that,
Yeah.
you get this.
Yeah.
And that is
Yep.
that's vandalism. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like
Yep.
you can't dance around that one. Okay.
Yep.
So this is where you agree this is wrong.
Well, I would, going against myself. What's the difference between doing that and getting in versus just breaking a door open? That is a door
It is a
with glass,
door. It's
with
a
glass in
beautiful
it.
ancient door.
I know. Beautiful ancient door. What other choice words do you want to have in defense of the door?
Probably mahogany.
Yeah, Mahogany from the finest
I mean, it
locations
could
in
be
North
taken
America.
from a British ship. I don't know, like the Resolute desk. Like, you are
Floated
destroying our
down,
national artifacts. Like,
floated down the Ohio River, and eventually brought. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Anyway, I mean, you got to break a door to get in. I try to avoid breaking as much as possible, but that's where my line gets drawn. Is like you got to break a door to get in, and from there,
But why do
that's
you need to get in? What are you going to achieve?
because when you're inside, which is the abnorm,
Yeah.
when something like that abnorm happens, I mean, these
Okay. You need to create an abnormal circumstances to be heard. But
not
the
necessarily to be
message that's
heard.
being heard here is a bunch of loons broke into the Capitol building and wrecked up the place.
All right, I don't want to give too much credit to the far left, but as they are fellow Americans as well, there's certain things even with them I
Oh,
do
they're
agree
very good at this.
with. Right, so I'm going to use something from their
But
playbook.
I don't think Saul Alinsky's playbook is the correct playbook.
I'm not saying him. I'm going to use. I'll use. Oh wow, I love how I've only been watching him now for like 3-4 weeks, and now I can't even remember his name. The one gentleman you and I were watching.
Hmm.
Oh Lord, that's going to drive me crazy. Well, anyway, before I'll look it up while I'm
A
listening.
progressive intellectual with a radio
Yeah,
show, no doubt.
yeah, I'm going to look up his name here. John Doerr, I think it is. He has his own podcast. I'll bring it up in a second after I just say. Essentially, what he says is you can't just protest outside. You can't just protest in a place that's expected. You need to.
You need to
I don't
shake
think.
things up,
Right.
violate assumptions. This is the sort of thing, to Trump's credit or detriment, depending on your point of view. This is something he
Mm,
does, just like when he's on the stage with somebody else. He steals the stage, right?
mm-hmm.
So in terms of establishing a narrative and stealing attention, yes, but I don't like a 4-year-old throwing a temper tantrum also gets attention, but it's not the attention you want.
Right. I the choice word that he said that always got me is you need to make them your politicians, your representatives who are not doing what you need them or want them to do. You need to make them feel uncomfortable.
Sure. And you
You
do
need to
that by primarying them.
or you do that by doing something that they will not expect. They expect protests on the Capitol steps every day and could care less. But when they're in your face, right there in the building, as much as I don't want to use, I guess
Well,
he said fear, which is like, that gets dangerous for me.
yeah, because now you
Yeah.
start trying to define terrorism.
hmm And that's where I'm like, oh, man, like I'm really partially agreeing with this guy. That doesn't feel right, doesn't seem right, but at the same time, he has a point,
But what
and
I'm
that's
saying is maybe it works for him when the social media sites, the established literature, the established academy is all going to pull for you and root for your plucky protesters against the evil establishment. That is not going to be the way this thing is framed.
yeah, and I know that's the case, but
So
again, that's
there's a
how
double
much.
standard, and you have to take that into account when you plan your strategy.
hmm
Okay. Senate
Man,
abruptly interrupts its session, goes into recess. Basically warns people, "Hey, stay calm, but get under your chairs if you need to. Just be ready." Um, Basically, the senators, some of them perhaps fearing for their lives.
yeah, a bunch of House reps were
I mean, look,
apparently they put
somebody
a
when a mob is banging on the door with a battering ram, I might understand that feeling.
they hid most of the House reps on the above section of the
Yeah,
House floor. I
makes
mean,
sense.
Suzanne Wild is like laying on the ground on her back, like almost in tears.
I mean, there's something a little bit
Wow.
cathartic about that when, but I that's a guilty pleasure, and I should not indulge it.
Yeah, as my locality House rep, I was not pleased. But anyway,
Senate
going on.
abruptly interrupts its session and goes into recess, where we did this. Following Pence's refusal to raise objections on the Electoral College vote count, which occurs about this time, Trump tweets that the vice president did not have the courage to do the right thing. I disagree with Trump. He's welcome to tweet it. I don't think that what he tweeted there was in any way illegal or bad or wrong. I
Hmm.
disagree, right? I think the vice president did the right thing. I think that, again, if you were going to fight this, you should have fought it at the state legislature level, not at the federal level. Um,
Hmm. Oh, and that gentleman, by the way, was Jimmy Dore.
yeah,
Again,
yeah.
obviously very, very, very liberal, but it's good to understand what the opposite perspective of some of your thoughts are thinking as well. Why do these people feel the way they do so we can understand them and
Right.
possibly some
And
underneath them
I
more?
do think that's important, in
Yeah.
that, man, you can't, you can condemn this, and I might
Hmm.
agree with your condemnation of the event, but
Hmm.
you should try to understand it, because this was not, the bulk of the people just ambling around this building were not a tiny, tiny minority. They were probably average Americans who weren't quite sure whether or not that was okay. Um, all
Emotion
right.
on full display.
228. Protesters clashed with the police inside the building. Okay,
Hmm.
what's this? Man, I gotta get moving here. People chanting USA, fisticuffs with the police, a couple of real idiots,
Yep.
as far as I
People,
could tell.
police trying to hold the line.
Awful.
Yeah,
Full
that's
anarchy. I couldn't agree more.
yeah. Again, shouldn't get to that point. Now, if those protesters, let's say they got to a point and finally ran into that police line and just
And
stood
stop.
there, yep,
Fine.
you could just stand there and do nothing.
Protesters start pouring into the middle of the Capitol building.
I think they opened those doors from the inside at that point.
This is taking a minute to load because it's a YouTube.
Only pay for what you need with Liberty.
All 6 seconds that we're about to see. Okay,
Yeah.
good to see.
Okay. Double
Ah,
ads. Damn you,
double,
YouTube.
double the wasted time. Damn
All
you.
right. What's this? Okay, so here is
Oh, see, there you go. There's those felt ropes.
right, and I do appreciate that the bulk of people see right the British tendency for queuing has occurred here. Um,
And this is even really a good video of that representation because the initial group that walked in all stayed within there and they all slowed
right,
down
there's
and
a
were
couple of
taking
people
pictures.
bumbling outside now, but
Yeah,
all
but
right,
it's
that was okay. That guy had a firearm. Hold on,
I missed that. Let's see it.
that's kind of
And this is another question I got. Oh, I heard that a lot of these protesters, rioters, dash rioters, were armed, and at least for who I was talking to, I'm like, I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything personally. I said, however, if you're walking around the crowd with an exposed firearm, that's dumb. And I'm certain, I would bet every dollar I own that there were people in this crowd with concealed firearms.
I mean,
I mean,
that looks like a long gun.
where
So
you got?
hold a moment.
Where?
He'll be coming this way.
Okay.
Um,
Well, and that brings me to another point. As we were discussing earlier, while we're waiting for this to eventually flow, there. Ooh. I'm sorry. I
yeah.
know this is not a event I should be laughing
Oh
at, but I
wait.
can't help
This was the angle. All right. So that's a flag.
it. Yep, that guy's got a
Oh, let me
flag.
do my 5-second rewinds.
Yep, while you're doing that, I'll keep going.
There it is. Okay, it's just a flag. Hold on.
That
5 seconds. Let's watch this guy.
I missed it.
He's just holding it like a
Yeah,
rifle.
it's just a flag. Yeah, he's holding like he's with flags.
Okay.
Um, but
Sorry.
obviously some people lost their lives during this event, and
Yeah.
we all know that, and it's very, very sad. There is a shot where you see the young woman who was first one reported to have been killed. She was shot trying to break down the door to get into
Yeah.
the house.
We're going to get to her because we have all that.
Yeah,
in
you know what?
just a
Yeah,
couple
we'll
minutes.
wait.
So,
We'll wait. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm trying so hard.
But,
All right.
that's my fault.
CBR and escape hoods are provided to Congress. Good. I didn't know we had those. So
Yep.
apparently there is some kind of plan. I mean, all I can think is like Al Qaeda's watching this and they're like, well, is it that easy?
Those escape hoods, by the way, are for gas.
Right.
So, I mean, I saw them put them on and was like, okay. I mean, there could be a possibility of gas. I can understand,
Right.
but all right.
Look, at
Sure.
least there's a procedure. I just assumed that ever since the end of the Cold War, we stopped actually having procedures for emergencies like this. So
Right.
good for somebody for being competent.
Mhm.
Although more competent would have been to get them all out of there.
Yeah.
More protesters are trying to enter the building through the windows on the ground floor. The individuals breaking the windows are reportedly booed and decried. Yeah, so this is pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a jerk breaking a window, and the crowd's
And here you go. Something else to consider about protesters/rioters.
people are chanting,
Everyone,
"No, don't do it!
yeah,
Don't break the window!
right,
Antifa, Antifa."
right.
Who knows if it's Antifa? Could be a Trump supporter that's gone too far. I think the same thing occurred last summer, where
Right,
there were Black Lives Matter protests, and then
right.
people show up who are clearly more professional rioters, and the black people who are there to protest, and the white people who are with them or with their friends or whatever, are looking
Mm-hmm.
around going, "Wait a minute, that's not
We're not
us."
doing it.
This
Yeah,
is, and so they suspected, just as these people suspect, that it was some sort of black flag operation from the other side.
yeah. I've
Um,
seen Black Lives Matter protesters grab someone that was in the group and hand them over to police
right. So
down
same
in
same thing
Seattle.
happening here.
Right.
Um, but again,
You don't know the intent or understanding of each member,
right,
each
which is
person in that
again why
riot.
you don't have a right to break the window.
Uh,
That's the place where you go too far. All right.
stop beating the dead horse. I will disagree all day. Keep going.
You don't have a right to
You
break the
you need
window.
a you would need a unified protest, of which this certainly was not.
That's no. I don't think there's any such thing as a unified protest, by the way.
It
There
worked
are
fairly
reports of
effectively at
shots
LA.
fired.
Only in that
Um,
instances before the riots, but
yeah, I was about to say,
yeah, that's why
huh,
I stopped. That's why I
huh.
stopped. That's why I
Maybe that
said
opened the
before.
door for what became
Uh,
possible.
uh,
Nancy Pelosi's office is broken into, showing still open emails left in place. Interestingly enough, like nobody rifled through Nancy Pelosi's secret documents. I mean, in a
there are
voyeuristic
rumors.
way, like
There,
where's the
so there are rumors that her laptop was stolen. There are rumors that papers were stolen. I know her sign was broken and taken into pieces. I mean, supposedly there was people who took who defecated and put it in people's offices. Like,
this guy takes picture in Nancy Pelosi's chair?
yeah, that. Oh God,
Um,
that's we know what guy that is, but
yeah.
yeah,
Then there's the Viking, our Vandal,
not a Viking. Historically inaccurate.
historically
He's not
inaccurate.
a. He is no. That is Buffalo Tatanka. I don't think he knows what he is. Although something really funny.
Yeah,
Apparently, the Irish guy in The Simpsons dressed just like that with the same exact tattoos.
the Irish guy,
Okay,
groundskeeper Willie, the Scottish guy.
excuse me. I apologize to Scots and Irish all alike. Yes, apparently, like 2 years ago.
There you got the whole world mad at you.
I'm so sorry. I'm
Both
sorry. I
sides
am a
angry
dad.
for different reasons.
I am a dad. I do not get to watch cartoons like that so much. I have a
Yeah.
7-year-old girl. Come on, give me a break.
Right, and it might be offensive that groundskeeper Willie is Scottish because he's a stereotype of a Scotsman.
That's a whole nother level. But but apparently they dressed exactly alike. So either
Right.
this guy is
Okay.
really really funny, or
I mean,
some.
he's LARPing.
I
He
mean,
knows it's funny.
I'm
He
sure
knows
he
it's
does.
funny to be dressed like a barbarian of sorts in the Capitol building
Are
with
you
his
saying that
flag
Native
tied
American
to a
tribes are
spear.
barbarian? Well, speaking, there's a weapon. If that indeed is an actual spear, which it kind of looks sharp to me.
Yeah, I mean, it is pointy enough to do the job with enough force, and he seems
Yeah,
a strong enough man to generate sufficient force.
he does. He does. But moving on, because
Okay.
that guy got so much media attention, it's not even funny.
All right, moving on. Law enforcement confirms that a shot was fired inside the building. Ashley
Mhm.
Babbitt, a 35-year-old Air Force veteran, shot in the neck, sustaining grave injuries. She dies from her wounds. Now, she was, I think, trying to break through a window at the time or trying to
She,
climb through a window.
she was within 5 feet of that of the door that a number of people were attempting to break into. I'd be a liar to say if I saw her take a swing at the door. I know she was right there. I'm assuming if you're that close to the door, you're
Graphic
not there just
footage.
hanging out.
Twitter payrolled it because it's graphic. Oh, you know what? Probably better we not show it because
Yeah, yeah,
we'll get banned or whatever.
right.
But
Come
anyway, it's
find
out
us.
there. You guys can go find it.
So
Don't show it to children.
I saw some of that footage live, and when she was hit, there was someone near her with what appears to be like almost an MP5 or something.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to go after my own
Look,
side.
I'm sure the Secret Service and other agencies who are charged with protection of Congress or protection of the Capitol have weapons.
No, but I don't. It was on the side of the door that was the protesters.
Are you saying that it was not an officer that shot her? Because that's what was reported.
No, 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 no. So inside the House chamber, there's a lot of pictures and videos of a number of Secret Service members, security. They're holding, pistols right at the doorway, and they have it blocked off. Someone shot through that door into that small crowd. I'm saying in that small crowd that was trying to break open the door, I saw with my own eyes for a very brief second or two someone with what appeared to be a submachine gun of sorts. Now, is it real? Is it not? I don't know. But I know what a submachine gun looks like. I've held plenty of them.
Sorry.
So, yeah, it's okay. So, again, I can't tell you exactly what it is, but it was in the shape of an MP5.
Yes. So you're saying that there was a gun amid the crowd, and this is why the guy shot her?
I think.
Or you're suggesting that might be a possibility?
It could be a possibility,
Okay.
but I mean, I don't know.
I think it's a bad shoot. At the same time, I sympathize with the officer, fearing.
Oh my God,
I mean,
yeah.
the crowd outnumbers you by how much, and you're told like, don't let anybody pass that point,
And there are
tools are
dozens
available
of
to you.
there are dozens of House reps in the parts of the chamber above, all hiding.
Right.
So.
So anyway, Washington Mayor Muriel issues a curfew beginning at 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy Pelosi asks the National Guard to clear and secure the Capitol, and minutes later, the Pentagon denies her request to deploy the Guard.
Now,
she technically doesn't have the authority.
Right. There's somewhere within an hour of this time frame, by the way. I guess it's not posted here.
Let's get into it, because I think we will find it, and if we don't, then you tell me what the theory is, or
I know it's not here because I looked yesterday. It was right within an hour, I think a little bit before this time period, that the Senate race was officially won down in Georgia.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was also happening at the same time.
So again, like small potatoes compared to this, but
it seals seals the deal as far as the Democrats having control for the next 2 years of all three houses, making Joe Manchin, as one of our clients astutely put it, the most important man in the United States.
Yeah.
Right.
Moving on. Though.
In any case.
Yes.
Several protesters are using scaffolding outside the Senate to reach the second floor. Apparently, there was construction being done on the dome, right?
Only place I saw there was scaffolding was in preparation for the inauguration. I know.
Oh, is that what it was for? Okay. I know last summer there was scaffolding over the dome.
There might have been, but again, I can't say I saw the entire building. Right. Oh, and maybe something important to note. And again, we're trying to keep moving here, but I can't help
it. Yeah, there it is.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that is not.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's for construction and maintenance purposes.
Yep.
The building is quite old and does need repair in some places, and so okay. Again, this is bad behavior.
Yeah, that is bad behavior. Who is in charge of the Guard in Washington, D.C.?
Well, yeah,
and
it's complicated, right? So the National Guard is state by state. The D.C. doesn't have its own section of National Guard, as far as I know. I'd be happy to be stood corrected on that. And that means the governors have the authority to move the Guard. The president has the ability to demand that the governors move the Guard. So the president has ultimate authority. If the mayor and the governor agree, I don't think they need the president's go-ahead.
Right.
The president could stop it if he wanted, I guess. But if the mayor and the governor agree, then the Guard can be moved without contacting the president.
So you're telling me the worst person to be is the commander of the Guard that's responsible for the D.C. area. That sucks.
It's the mayor has to ask and the governor has to give the order. And I guess the mayor could ask either the Maryland Guard or the Virginia Guard.
Right. Moving on.
Okay.
Uh, Complications.
The Senate chamber is reported to have been entered through the roof. Protest. What?
What? Oh,
See,
please.
there was so much stuff going on that day.
Oh, jeez. Oh, well, yeah. So I saw this guy who apparently thinks Procor in the Senate is the best thing in the world to do, enters through the roof.
Crack squad of MAGA soldiers.
And
Okay. Um, yep.
all
Okay,
right,
so
list of
somebody parkoured their way in off that construction equipment, I guess.
yeah. I mean, clearly that's something I could check off my list.
Of like things you thought you'd never see.
Well, there's that. I mean,
More of this.
our place of work checks that box off continually every single day. I mean, when you enter your place of work and one of your
The Vandals conquer the House chamber.
not a vandal. Listen, when one of the I think I've already said it before, so at this point I think it's already known. When one of your students comes up to you and is like, "I got a flare gun for Christmas," you're like, "Oh, check off the list." You're like, "Yeah, that's wonderful. Let's focus on what we're supposed to be focusing on."
Yeah. Forward. All right. Protesters entering various offices inside the Capitol building. Trump tweets, so it's 3:13. I am asking everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. No violence. We are the party of law and order. Respect law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you.
Okay. Now, I do have a problem with this.
Oh, really?
Not this.
Okay.
The timeline is wrong. I'm going to say the timeline is wrong.
There's another tweet later.
No, but the timeline is missing something very important.
Okay, what's that?
3 to 4 minutes prior to that tweet going live,
Uh-huh.
or at least again, this is from the time I'm getting notifications on my cell phone while driving home from where we work. So I'm sure a few minutes are off. So
Yeah, sure.
forgive me. Joe Biden goes live on television and basically goes after Donald Trump, saying that he needs to end this, he needs to stop this, he needs to tell everyone to go home, be responsible, be the president of the United States, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
In the middle of that speech occurring,
This tweet goes off.
Right, Trump's tweet goes off.
Okay.
And within minutes of that tweet going off, as I'm sure I think it says here, oh, excuse me, I don't know if I see it yet because I'm trying to.
It'll happen where Twitter locks Trump's account.
4 minutes. 4 minutes.
Oh, wow.
4 minutes after seeing his tweet, like getting the news, clicking on it, seeing his tweet video, boom, Twitter locks it.
Okay, so this is the first tweet from Trump because there are several.
Right.
So 3:13, Trump tweets: "Law and order, peace, no violence, be respectful. Thank you." Right? Okay. Clearly, some violence has already occurred at this point. But he may not have that information yet.
Okay, then that's actually not the correct tweet. It's the one where he posts the video telling everyone to go home. So that must be later.
Right. That's much later.
But
But it's worth noting because everybody says, "Oh, Trump didn't do anything until later." Well, at 3:13, this is a pretty good message. Now, it's not go home, but it is be peaceful, be respectful, don't do anything bad. Now, I wish he'd said that at the speech, but that's hindsight.
Yep.
Okay.
Couldn't agree more.
3:20. The Senate chamber is recaptured by law enforcement, and protesters are in the process of being pushed from the second and third floors in the rotunda.
Recaptured. I mean, there was like a dozen people in there sitting in seats, like bored out of their mind.
Right.
I mean, it looks like what do we do now? I'm here.
Yeah.
But go on.
Okay. 3:28. The D.C. mayor asks again for National Guard to be deployed. The request is being considered by the Pentagon. Virginia Governor Northam tweets, oh, awesome, Governor Blackface. My team and I are working closely with the mayor and senator to respond to the situation. So, the Mayor Bowser, Speaker Pelosi, and Senator Schumer. Well, the truth is only the mayor matters.
Well, they keep mentioning the Pentagon.
Well, the mayor has to coordinate with the Pentagon, the governor has to coordinate with the Pentagon when he moves the National Guard.
And
if he moves the National Guard without notifying the Pentagon, then you're in like 1860 territory.
Right, but is that only viable for DC, or would that be viable for other states if
Oh
there's
yeah,
other
no. If
emergencies?
you're moving the National Guard within your own state, you don't need necessarily. It's courtesy, but you don't need the
Ri-
Pentagon's approval. So you need the
Right.
Pentagon's approval to move the National Guard from out of your state and into D.C. You need the mayor's request, and you need the governor to do it. By the way, Pelosi and Schumer are mentioned in this statement. They don't matter. They're mentioned for
No.
political reasons.
Right. They have
So,
no sway whatsoever.
right.
Um,
Per the mayor's
again,
request, I am sending members of the Virginia National Guard along with 200 Virginia state troopers. Totally within his rights to do that if the mayor's asking for it.
hmm
All right. And by the way, probably a good thing. I don't like any of these people, but probably a good thing.
Mayor Bowser isn't. I think the mayor of DC is a woman. I forgive me. I'm not sure.
Yeah, she is. Muriel
Okay.
Bowser.
Ah, all right.
Mike Pence tweets, the violence and destruction taking place at the U.S. Capitol must stop. And it must stop now. Anyone involved must respect law enforcement officers and immediately leave the building, adding, peaceful protest is the right of every American, but this attack on our Capitol will not be tolerated and those involved will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Entirely
hmm
appropriate, as far as I'm
hmm
concerned.
hmm
This, by the way, starts the narrative where, like, Pence and Trump disagree, and it's like, you hope.
hmm
340. The Speaker's podium from the House of Representatives is taken away, but by one of the prosecutors, or sorry, by one of the protesters.
Right.
White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany states that the National Guard is en route to the Capitol, on the instruction of Trump.
hmm
Okay. 345. Capitol Police encourage sheltering members of Congress and their staff to remain in place. East doors to the building is crowded with protesters and police.
hmm
348. Protesters are being apprehended outside the House chamber. An explosive device is found at the RNC and detonated by the bomb squad. What is that?
Interesting.
Okay. We'll have to look that up later. No idea what kind of pipe bomb it was or wasn't.
Yeah, all I saw was package
Right.
before you clicked off of that. But anyway,
Gotcha. They have to assume it's whatever it is
right,
until proven otherwise.
right.
The House Speaker Pelosi and Senator Minority Leader Chuck Schumer released a statement calling for Trump to demand that all protesters leave. That's 3:50 p.m.
Okay.
3:58, 5 people are reported to have been transported to the hospital. 4
hmm
o'clock, walls of the Capitol are being scaled.
Parkour.
Yes.
Nice.
Military helicopters are reported to have been deployed, of course.
hmm
4:05,
Okay. Yeah.
Joe Biden addresses the nation. Okay, so this is Joe Biden's thing. Our democracy is under unprecedented assault. Okay, that's just as invective. 4:15, and it's not unprecedented. The Capitol was burned to the ground by the British in 1812.
hmm
The U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Awesome. Investigate what is described as a suspicious item close to the Republican National Committee headquarters. Okay, so that's the same thing as the pipe bomb, or I'm not sure. That's your
No.
suspicious package.
hmm
Trump releases a video on Twitter asking for the violence to stop
hmm
and for people to go home in peace, while reaffirming his commitment to the position that the election had been stolen from him.
hmm
And I guess this is the part that's just unacceptable. Even though,
Oh, his first words were essentially, I know you're tired, I know you're angry, I know you're upset, but basically, I know the election
basically go home and
was
be peaceful. So
right, but then we
that's
need to go
the
home.
meat
We
of
need
the
to be
statement.
peaceful.
But
Right.
the part that his opponents take umbrage with is but the election was stolen from me.
And here's the thing.
Except what wasn't Hillary's book a New York Times bestseller? Didn't
Twitter
it say the
blocks
same
that.
thing?
They block it right away.
Right. Yeah.
So is that a computer blocking that because he's saying the election was stolen, or is that someone
no,
sitting
that's
there?
Jack Dorsey sitting there and deciding that that's going to happen. And that's the whole other half of this thing that's going to go forward. Trump releases a video. So, police are filmed using fire extinguishers against the crowd.
Okay.
I think entirely appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Fire hoses might be appropriate. I have no problem with that. Senators, it's far less violent than like I think it's not as bad as rubber bullets potentially.
We've done away with using
We,
water hoses.
we've done
Unlike
away
the
with that
Europeans.
because we
Yeah,
don't like the
because
imagery of it.
yeah, because of what happened in the South.
But I think yeah, again, I think it is right to use the water hoses when the law is being broken. Okay.
Well, yeah, when you're being utterly unruly, I'll stick with tear gas. Going on.
I would rather have the water hose than the tear gas. Okay.
Water hose, I think, can do more damage than tear gas, but I don't know. Maybe.
Not if you have asthma. Pools of blood are seen on the steps leading to the entrance of the building. Various serious injuries are reported. News starts coming out. National Guard deployment was discussed between State and Senate Leader Mitch McConnell. Basically, everybody's good. Trump is not mentioned, sparking questions about whether he was consulted at all. Of course, he was consulted through the Pentagon. Pentagon reports to the president. The police are using what appears to be smoke and flash grenades to get protesters to disperse from the Capitol building stairs. Trump's video calling for peace is removed from Facebook. And the Twitter ban already happened, I think. Because, on balance, we believe it contributes to rather than diminishes the risk of ongoing violence. Or rather, contributed to the narrative that Trump did anything appropriate during this whole time, and you don't want any record of it. 544. The Capitol building is reported to have been secured. Protesters are being pushed away from the building. 6 o'clock curfew in Washington comes into effect. 6:01, Trump tweets. Oh, he's still got a Twitter.
This is when he was using the POTUS.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The real POTUS.
Yeah.
These are things and events. These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from the great patriots who had been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Go home with love and peace. Remember this day forever. Twitter locks President Trump's account for 12 hours due to repeated and severe violations of civic integrity policy. Who knew that Twitter was an arbiter of civic integrity? In order to unlock his account, he will need to delete the offending tweets, including his video posted at 4:17, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that video. 7:07, Twitter. The Twitter safety team declares further violations of the Twitter rules, including civic integrity policy, will result in permanent suspension of @RealDonaldTrump accounts. Oh no, that was the one he's been using. So
Yeah.
So then he creates his new one.
Well,
We made our way through.
Well, he has his personal one, and there's the POTUS one that every president gets.
Yep.
I know he tweeted when he was able to tweet. He tweeted from that after his personal one was locked. But regardless, he was able to get it out. And these social media organizations are blocking it. Now, mind you, again, going after myself, I'm a firm proponent of a business has its own rights to do what it desires to do. But I don't know where that line is when you're dealing with the president of the United States. I mean, I don't. It's kind of torn.
Well, the question is whether it's a platform or a publisher. I think if it's a publisher, it has the right. I think if it's a platform, it does not.
I see, and that's where it's getting.
I think a platform has. I think the platform has to follow the rules of like taking down, pornography or keeping it in a place where it's gated. You have to click through to see it. Same thing for like the violence, the death stuff. But and I think they have an obligation to take down actual incitements. So if Trump had got on there and said, "Burn the Capitol down, hang all those jerks," right? I think they have a right and an obligation to take that down, and I think they could be prosecuted for not taking it down or not, investigating it or doing what they could to stop it. However, anything short of that, I think when you decide to take it down, you become a publisher and not a platform, and that means you lose your basically your status as a not-for-profit or whatever the hell Twitter is. You know what I'm saying? Like you lose all the government protections. The idea that you can't be sued for what's on there. When you're a publisher, you can be sued for what's on there. When you're a platform, you can't be, because other people are putting it on there, and you've just provided a public forum. So the problem is these silicon yahoos who um, think themselves like unto God. Some of them
Mm-hmm.
want to have their cake and eat it too. They want it both ways.
Mm-hmm. So here we are. And again, obviously, we're a few days late on this, and there's still news that's going to be pouring out.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, who knows? This pipe bomb or that parkour guy or this Viking or whatever.
right, right. It's Mr. As you're describing him, Viking was arrested yesterday.
Right.
Um, but here we are, and now we need to discuss, at least briefly, what are the repercussions of this? What is going to happen now? And I
I
think,
think the I hate saying the establishment because it's such a classist way of framing things. Um,
unfortunately, there's some truth to it, but yeah.
let us say the powers that be in Washington D.C., who
Hmm.
found themselves at odds with almost everything Trump represented,
Hmm.
um, are going to be able to use this to put the nail in the coffin of his legacy. And it's just like he will not have, and we always knew that he would not have, the Camelot treatment. You
Right.
know what I mean? It was never going to be like there would be a PBS documentary about the inside of the Trump White House that was done in any other way than a character assassination process, right?
Hmm.
Everything was going to be ad hominem about him forever, regardless of policies or the details or anything.
Hmm.
But now I think that there's going to be popular support for that version of events.
And something to think about that has always kind of come up in my mind is obviously he's going to lose the presidency soon. Joe Biden will be president.
Yes.
How long does the media hold on to? Oh, how long do they hold on to Trump? How long can they still viably bring him up in the news?
Oh,
Regard
for
whether
forever he gets brought up as the boogeyman.
right, but
He becomes Hitler.
that
Media
only
talks about Hitler all
works.
the time.
Yeah, that only works so long with what's going on in current events, right? Like you could keep, they're going to blame him for the next 4 years
At least,
for
yeah,
everything,
for every economic damage.
right? And his name will keep coming up, but
And
eventually,
eventually he'll become like a Goldwater sort of figure,
hmm,
where they'll talk about him anytime they want to talk about the Republicans doing something or the conservatives doing something
right,
that they don't like. They'll say, "Oh, well, this is Trumpism,"
right.
and therefore you will lose if you do this.
That article I remember I sent you. Actually, it was one of the articles I think we were going to do on here at some point, which was how to destroy the remnants of Trumpism. How we can move on as
Yeah,
a nation
mission
destroying
accomplished.
Trumpism.
Now, look, I'm not
Well,
purporting a conspiracy
yeah.
theory. I'm not saying this was done to destroy Trumpism. I am saying let no crisis go to waste, as Rahm Emanuel is reputed to have said.
Right, but you also cannot destroy an idea, and that boogeyman will always be there.
Well, I mean, in the way that Trump was a Goldwater,
Hmm.
in the way that the people who voted for Goldwater and Reagan felt
Hmm.
like they were getting what they wanted out of Trump. But
It's I
you
just don't
can't.
think.
So to the extent that we want to talk about ideas, yeah, you can't. We're not interested in ideas often. We're interested with the perception of events. We're interested in the narrative. You talked about this. The left is very, very good at shaping the narrative. And
Hmm.
so rather than a discussion about, I don't know, walls or tariffs or tax policy or how big a stimulus check somebody should get or whether or not stimulus is a good idea, we're going to have a discussion about how badly behaved and dangerous and evil and twisted the Trump presidency was. And that's going to dominate the discussion.
We just have to see for how long. It's going to be around forever. But I'm saying, like, eventually, I'm wondering where that line crosses of new events that are happening now that Joe Biden has to deal with will supersede over top of in importance of the news, the things that Trump quote did or did not do.
Yeah, we'll see. We do have to review some of our. I'm not going to go into Epictetus today because I'm short for
Yeah,
time, but we do need
yeah,
to
not
review our
today.
checklist. All right. Will Biden's policy be substantially different from COVID on Trump? Not decided yet. Will the U.S. or UK ever reach a deal? Don't care.
Yeah, not there yet.
How do you think Trump pushing the EU government paying off? Not a big deal. Okay. Second or Fourth Amendment will be further infringed by U.S. or PA law. You said yes, Beta will do something by 2022, and I said yes, but it will be at the state level and it will be a state registry. I might eat that. Now we don't have to find out until 2022, but I might eat that because they control the Senate now.
Mm-hmm.
If shutdown orders start to roll in from various states, can we expect the Supreme Court to be perceived as more political or to get involved? I said yes, the court will get involved, and it's already perceived as political. You said yes, the court will get involved, and they will be perceived as even more political.
They're going to be targeted. It's the last, and this is what scares me, is that I wonder how much is going to come up where the Republicans are going to say this is our only weapon. Not that they have control of it anyway, but if the media will attempt to frame the Republicans as attempting to weaponize the Supreme Court. I mean, something would have to happen for them to
I
get
mean, it's
involved
just
in.
it seems like Roberts is so avoiding of any kind of involvement anywhere.
Right, but that doesn't mean that the other members are going to sit there utterly quietly.
That's
Although
true.
some of them are very good at it.
Thomas has been more vocal since Scalia died.
Yeah, he has, but
he did have like
those
7
people,
year of silence or something.
right? And those
He's
people
a
are the
monk.
most dangerous. Just sitting in the corner, not saying anything. What's he thinking?
Will Israel and Saudi Arabia normalize relations? Don't care. Will drilling in Anwar proceed in 2021? No. And we're both certain of that now.
Yeah.
France, Le Pen, not worried about it. Do you believe that as time goes on, with Trump out of the way, we will hear more allegations of Chinese interference? And we said yes, we'll hear more allegations, but I said the media will ignore it, and you said they won't be able to.
There was the breach, although it was Russian.
Yep.
Which I've seen a few articles even the last few days saying just how widespread it was that the Russians were in everything.
Will NVIDIA back down, or will they double down on this sort of behavior? You said they would double down. The truth is they did make some conciliatory noises, but I don't know whether or not they've continued the practice or not. So we'll have to hold off on that until 2021. My new question for today, and I think we'll end with this, is will the Dems do away with the Electoral College or pack the Supreme Court?
Oh God.
Or I mean, choose your insane
no and yes.
project.
No and yes.
Okay. So the chair says.
Yeah. No to the Supreme, or excuse me, to the.
No to the Electoral College.
No to the Electoral
yes,
College.
to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen.
Oh man. I don't even know that.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen right away. There's going to be something that comes up.
I'm going to say no to both and just hope I'm right.
Yeah,
I hope Joe Manchin stands in the way.
but right, but I don't know, because Biden was now taking a politician's word. Biden was questioned a number of times. Will you go after Supreme Court? Will you add members of Supreme Court? Will you go after Supreme Court? And he didn't say anything.
Yeah, he didn't say he wouldn't.
Yeah, he didn't say he wouldn't.
I mean, I'm pretty sure if it ends up on his desk, he's not going to say no.
Well, yeah, it's interesting though, because the left would have been like yes, say it, but he didn't. I'm curious, now that they've won the Senate, will he start pulling to the right, inside obviously the Democratic Party, because there's going to be so many people pulling from the opposite side? Will the tug of war begin?
Yeah.
Or will it be slowly dragged further left? I'm curious.
All right. Unfortunately, I've got to run. But it's been really interesting.
Yeah, scary,
so
interesting. We're definitely going to be talking about this again. But it's just that there's so much to still dive into, and I think we're all still collectively catching our breath from it.
Yeah. All right. Well, till next week. I am the Cabinet.
Indeed, and I am the department chair. Uh,
Best
we
of
still
luck.
have no gavel. Yeah,
Yeah,
have a
peace
good
out.
one.